Yo, what's up everybody? Mike from Troopers is you. Today, the video is about the NFL playoff picture. The season has come to an end. No, it has not. We have one more week left. Week 17, the final week where all 32 teams get to try their best to make the NFL playoffs. Every single year, it begins with the hope of a Super Bowl trophy, and the only way to get that trophy is to make the playoffs. A tournament where this year, 14 teams out of 32 get to contend for a Super Bowl trophy. So, coming into the final week of the season, which of these teams is going to make the playoffs and how are they going to? So I just want to clear up some things in this video. Basically, there's definitely a lot of confusion over tiebreakers a lot of the time. So first off, we're going to start with the NFC, and we're going to talk about the important games in Week 17. In Week 17, there are 4 important games in terms of the playoffs. These games are Cardinals versus Rams and Bears versus Packers. Those go hand in hand. And then Washington versus Eagles and Cowboys versus Giants. Those two go hand in hand. The NFC is a little easier than the AFC just because in the NFC there are only really 3 teams outside of the playoffs. We have the Washington, Cowboys, and Giants fighting for that one NFC East division title. And then we have the Cardinals, Bears, and Rams fighting for the 6th and 7th seed in the playoffs as well. So first thing we have to talk about is the Cardinals versus Rams. So this is an important game for both these teams. This is a playoff game. You know, this is the pre-wild card. If the Cardinals win this game, they make the playoffs. If they lose, they're out. If the Rams win this game, they make the playoffs. If the Rams lose, they are out. Now, Jared Goff has a thumb injury. He broke his thumb in the loss to the Seattle Seahawks. So Jared Goff might not play this game, which is definitely going to help Arizona's chances. Arizona has had a lot of opportunities the last couple of weeks to prove that they even want to be in the playoffs at all. They lost to the 49ers, which was a brutal loss. Honestly, I was surprised they lost that game. They lost to the Rams earlier in the season, early December. They lost to the Rams at home. So now they have a chance to go to Los Angeles, get the revenge, and I think that the Cardinals will do this. The Rams haven't been playing awful as of late. They had a tough loss to Seattle where their offense couldn't really get much going, and Seattle's defense isn't really the best in the league. So the fact that their offense couldn't get going concerns me a little bit. And definitely that Jared Goff injury is scary if you're a Rams fan. I think the Cardinals go into Los Angeles, make the playoffs, and spoil LA's hopes. So what does the Cardinals win mean for the Chicago Bears? Because the Chicago Bears play the Green Bay Packers, which has implications for the Packers and Bears. This game does take place in Chicago. So if the Bears win this game, they're in the playoffs. Simple as that. Win and you're in for Chicago. But if the Bears lose, they can still make the playoffs. If the Bears lose this game and the Cardinals beat the Rams, then the Bears and Cardinals both can make the playoffs. And this is a little tricky because you're thinking to yourself, so if the Bears and Cardinals make it, that means the Rams don't. And so the Bears, Cardinals, and Rams would all be a 3-way tie in terms of record. They would all be 9-7. So the Rams beat the Bears earlier in the season. But when there's a 3-way tie, it doesn't go off head-to-head record at first. It goes off divisional opponents first. Cardinals own that divisional tiebreaker over the Rams, and then the Bears have the tiebreaker over the Cardinals based on like conference record or something like that. So the Bears somehow beat the Rams in a tiebreaker, even though the Rams already beat them. A little bit weird, but just go with it, all right? Bears and Cardinals can both make the playoffs. If the Bears lose, Cardinals win. Bears and Cardinals are in. If the Bears win, they're in as well. So the only way that Bears don't make the playoffs is if the Bears lose to the Packers and the Rams beat the Cardinals, which could easily happen. Keep that in mind. The Packers, however, the Packers do sit right now in the first seed in the NFC. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, the Bears should have an easy win right here. The Packers do have to play this game. The Packers do sit in first right now, but that can easily change with a loss right here. The Saints and Seahawks sit 1 game back behind the Packers, and both of those teams are going to be playing hard this week in Week 17. If the Packers win this game, they clinch first seed and a bye in the playoffs, which is why the Packers are going to try in this game. And I believe the Packers beat the Chicago Bears. The Packers honestly look unstoppable. Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, definitely a really good combo. The Packers, I believe, beat the Chicago Bears. I know. Tough luck, Chicago. However, the Chicago Bears do have a chance if the Cardinals win that game. So basically, my prediction is the Bears and Cardinals both make the playoffs. Rams get the short end of the stick. That could easily change depending on the Cardinals versus Rams game. Then we look at the NFC East. We have Washington currently sitting at 6-9, Dallas at 6-9, and then the New York Giants at 5-10. Whew. The Eagles are eliminated from this division, but not really. Although it is true that the Eagles cannot make the playoffs, they still have a say at who makes the playoffs. The Eagles play Washington on Sunday Night Football. This game was originally supposed to be earlier, but it was flexed till primetime. And the NFL is definitely scheming. The Cowboys and Giants play at 1 o'clock, and the winner of that game has a huge chance of making the playoffs. Because if the Eagles beat Washington, Washington is eliminated. So that's right. Eagles beat Washington. Washington can't make it. Eagles can't make it. Then it comes down to Cowboys versus Giants. And whichever team wins that game that comes earlier in the day, they make the playoffs. So Cowboys versus Giants, winner of that game, good chance to make the playoffs. Washington versus Eagles, if Washington beats Philadelphia, which they probably will be favored to win if Alex Smith comes back from injury, if Terry McLaurin comes back from injury, if Washington wins this game against Philadelphia, who's eliminated, then Washington clinches the NFC East title. So what do I think is going to happen? I'm actually kind of big on the Eagles offense right now. I think the Eagles offense looks good under Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles beat Washington, which then would mean whoever wins the Cowboys versus Giant game earlier in the day would then make the playoffs. I think the Cowboys beat the Giants. I think the Eagles beat the Washington football team. I think the Cowboys, unfortunately, I'm an Eagles fan, I think the Cowboys make the playoffs. So kudos Cowboys. They've had a couple of good games as of late. I think the Cowboys will earn their way into the tournament. Then we look at the AFC side of things. Right now, there are 5 teams sitting with a record of 10-5. That's right. In the NFC, a couple of teams might make it at 9-7, but there's 5 teams who are 10-5, who all are in danger of not making the playoffs. We have the Tennessee Titans, 10-5, the Miami Dolphins, 10-5, Baltimore Ravens, 10-5, Cleveland Browns, 10-5, and not in a great position right now, the Indianapolis Colts at 10-5. So the Colts are kind of the worst off team out of all this. The Colts have a couple different ways that they lose the tiebreaker. They lose the tiebreaker to Cleveland because they lost to Cleveland, and they lost the tiebreaker to Baltimore because they lost to Baltimore, and they lose the tiebreaker to Miami based on conference record, and they lose the tiebreaker to Tennessee based on conference record again. So Indianapolis has to win this week to make the playoffs, basically, because if they don't, I don't see any tiebreaker working out in their favor. And because of this, it's not even win in. If the Colts win, but so do the 4 other teams, tough luck Indianapolis, 11-5. Then it won't be looking good for their playoff odds, which is honestly brutal. 11-5, and they could miss the playoff. That's just crazy. Now, are they going to win this week? I believe that they will. The Colts play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Come on. The Jaguars are trying to lose, so the Colts should win their game. Colts should be 11-5. So which one of the other teams could lose their games? The Cleveland Browns are 10-5, and they're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Now the Steelers, they already clinched their division. They don't really have much to play for except for momentum. The Steelers, they don't really have things figured out right now. Their offense hasn't been functioning great. Their defense is playing better as of the last couple of games, but their offense needs to get things together. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have their starters on the field for most of the game, and they definitely probably want to spoil Cleveland Browns' playoff hopes. The Steelers are probably going to try in this game, and Cleveland definitely is going to try. This game is in Cleveland, I believe. It is in Cleveland, so that's a bit of an advantage right there. I think the Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in an upset game, which will keep their playoff hopes alive. That might not happen, though. A lot of people might disagree with that, but for the sake of this video, I get to choose. I say Cleveland wins that game. Then we have the Baltimore Ravens. Just like the Indianapolis Colts, the Ravens have an easy game as well. The Baltimore Ravens play the Cincinnati Bengals. Come on now. I believe the Ravens have enough in the tank to beat the Bengals. That means the Ravens should make the playoffs. If the Ravens win, then they're in. The Titans look good in all the tiebreaker scenarios, and they play the Houston Texans. The Titans, honestly, I think they'll beat the Texans. It might be a little bit closer than a lot of people expect, but I think the Titans should win that game, and they'll probably handle business. Especially Derrick Henry got stuffed a little bit by the Packers. They're definitely going to have a big game with Derrick Henry this week against the Texans. And the team that I think is most vulnerable in this scenario is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins play the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, they do sit in 11-3, and they might not play their starters, which would be advantageous for the Dolphins, of course. The Dolphins might actually have a chance. But honestly, Tua Tagovailoa hasn't been looking great as of late. The play calling has been a little bit too conservative for my liking. I haven't seen him push the ball down the field as much as, let's see, Ryan Fitzpatrick maybe. So the Dolphins versus Bills, that's going to be a tough game for Miami. And I think if the Dolphins lose that game and the other three teams, other three teams, Cleveland has a tough game. Cleveland and Miami are the two tough games in the AFC right now. Whoever loses their game, I think, is not going to make the playoffs. And either one of those teams could easily make it. The Colts have an easy game. The Titans have an easy game. The Ravens have an easy game. And the Dolphins and Cleveland, they play the Bills and Steelers. I think the Dolphins and Browns are the two most vulnerable teams and most likely to miss the playoffs in the AFC. The Chiefs obviously already have the first seed, so that's really all we have to talk about in the AFC side of things. I hope this video cleared up some things for you guys, made things a little bit more, you know what to watch for in Week 17 now. Please hit the subscribe button right now if you like this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and there we go. Thanks for watching.